Welcome to the Stage Analysis Members Midweek video. It's Wednesday, 19th of October. This is my second attempt at the video. I was already halfway through the video on the first one, and then I had some internet problems, and now I'm going to have to start again. So a little bit annoying, but hopefully second try will actually get a little bit more in there as well in terms of detail. So I'm going to start tonight's video by talking about what's going on in the energy stocks and obviously crude oil itself, as you can see that crude oil itself has actually been moving into stage 4 recently. And so, but today we've had a lot of energy stocks starting to attempt to make stage 2 continuation breakouts. There's been a lot of energy stocks in stage 3 for a while now. Some actually had been breaking down, but we've had some forming cup and handle patterns and double bottoms, all those kind of patterns that people look for. But obviously at the same time, oil itself has been breaking down into stage 4. So I've been reluctant to actually include them in the watch list as much as I was during 2021 and early part of 2022, when they were obviously strong and we were in a strong stage 2 advance. So obviously we started to see this topping out in March. You saw we had this buying climax week here. I think it was, 7th of March week there. Highlighted it at the time, the potential buying climax, automatic reaction, secondary test as a potential start of a stage 3 range. Now you can see here we had this week where it potentially started to break down from this base structure here, but you can see the 30-week moving average at that point was still rising, and the 10-week moving average was still above the 30-week moving average there, so it hadn't yet crossed below. So at this point here, it wouldn't yet be considered stage 4, as you've still obviously got the technicals are not quite in line. You can see from the SATA rating at the time, it was a 2, so it was very weak at the time, but obviously the 30-week moving average was still rising. So you can see down here, this third line in here, you can see that's the 30-week moving average rising there. You can see it was still green until this point here. So until this week here, which is that week, the 30-week moving average hadn't turned down. And by that point there, you can see that the 10-week moving average was then strongly below that 30-week moving average as well. So at this point in here, potentially could start to say it was in stage 4, although you might have obviously at that point, because it had formed a smaller range, you might have waited until the following week. So at this point in here, definitely in stage 4 now. And it's had a pull down, reverse back up to the old resistance level here, which was obviously support turned resistance, and then fallen over once more and fell back below that declining 10-week moving average. So this week it's pulled back in towards the declining 10-week moving average a little bit more. Again, we've got a SATA rating of 2. So what a SATA rating means is it's the stage analysis technical attribute score, which goes from a 0 to 10. So generally when you're below a score of 3, you tend to be in stage 4. So you can see this red area in here. So this chart shows it in 3 different rays, the coloured bands. So when it's red, it's below it's got a score of 3 or below. When it's blue, it's a 4 to a 6, and when it's green, it's a 7 to 10. So generally, when you're in the 7 to 10 zone, it tends to be in stage 2, although in order to get a stage 2 breakout, you often don't get the breakout until you get a score of a 9 or a 10. So to get a 10, you need to have a breakout. So the first line in this SATA score here at the bottom here is a breakout or a breakdown. So you can see these are much rarer. They only happen, it's done on a quarterly basis. I think I do it on with those. So basically needs to make a 13-week breakout in order to move into potentially a stage 2 position there, as well as obviously the ratings being on green. So each one gets when it's green, it gets a score of 1, and when it's red or blue, it gets a score of 0. So there's multiple technical attributes that from the stage analysis method, from Stan Weinstein's method, that we look for. So I've created a scoring system in order to help people visually see the stages when it's more. Obviously, when it's in stage 1 or stage 3, it's more neutral. It tends to be in the mid-range of the scoring system. When it's in stage 2, it tends to be in the upper zone. So you can see in here, during this period through here, Obviously, it was strongly in a stage 2 advance at that point. You can see it started to turn neutral through this period here a little bit, but it was still in stage 2. So you can see, obviously, it's carried on through stage 2 throughout this period. So obviously got not that one, the one I was looking for here. So you've got this, obviously, breakout week here. So moved up into stage 2 here. You can see it stayed in stage 2 until potentially, you can see at this point here, you can see that breakdown week started to happen. However, it hadn't yet broken 30-week moving average. Is still rising, hadn't made lower lows. So this potentially turned it into stage 3 behavior at this point and then made a stage 2 continuation. So until this move up here where we had the buying climax, you would still consider this stage 2 and all the way over until this point in here. So this is all stage 2, but this would be considered late in stage 2. And as I said earlier in the video, at this point here, you've got a buying climax, an automatic reaction, secondary test. So start of a base structure, which you then draw your horizontal lines across, start of a potential stage 3 structure, although it's at that point it would still be considered late stage 2B. So, and then at this point here you get that significant bar and it started to roll over. So as I said, we're currently in stage 4, and in order for obviously the breakouts that we're seeing in individual oil stocks to have some strong progress, you would expect oil to actually recover back into the range here. If this continues to roll over in here and continues to make lower lows in stage 4, then that would be a huge headwind against the oil stocks. And as we know, throughout the last year or so, throughout this period here, obviously oil energy groups have generally been leading the relative strength rankings, so for the majority of that time, and so it was much easier to get stage 2 moves in the oil stocks themselves. But with a major headwind of oil being in stage 4 here now, if we look into the individual groups themselves, you can see the actual stocks are currently in stage 3 here. So this is exploration and production. So you can see this has been in stage 3 for a little while now, since this significant reversal bar here. We haven't yet broken the range from this bar itself. So if you just draw a range across from that bar itself, we haven't yet got back above and broken the key resistance from that level there. So if we start to make a strong move back through that level and obviously test the ultimate high there, then potentially on some stronger relative volume, then potentially this could make a stage 2 continuation breakout. But obviously the worry with oil in stage 4 itself at the moment, if this makes a stage 2 continuation breakout and oil doesn't follow suit, is that this could obviously then turn into what we call an up thrust after distribution, where this could then fall back into the range again and then start to make lower lows and break down into stage 4 more convincingly, as we've seen with obviously many patterns over the last year or so. You've seen this happen time and time again, where the stock or groups formed a stage 3 range. We've had a failed continuation breakout to new highs on lower volume. You can see the volume is lower as it's been moving higher here, and then it's fallen back down into the range and sharply moved lower and then moved off into stage 4. Integrated oil and gas making the similar kind of pattern. We've got that significant reversal bar that started the potential start of stage 3 there. You can see holding within that range as well, and that one hasn't yet broken above the top of that, although it's testing it currently. So again, if we get a strong breakout to new highs here on stronger relative volume, then potentially that could be a stage 2 continuation breakout. But as with exploration production, you could obviously form an up thrust here and start to come back down into the range. If it starts to break down at that point, you then potentially start to move off into stage 4 type behavior. So although we're seeing lots of breakout attempts, there's obviously with the headwind of oil itself, we've got to have a thought in our mind of that they could be potential fake out moves, bull traps, and to be on alert for any reversals back into the ranges again if they do break out. Oil equipment and services was the strongest mover today, had a 5% move on a day or so. But again, we've got this significant bar, and compared to the other two, you can see the other two were testing the top of that bar, whereas oil equipment and services is much lower in comparison. So this is obviously it had a whole range develop below, fell into potential stage 4 type environment, but you can see the 30-week moving average was still rising as this was falling off. So it was very, very weak and potentially a much broader stage 3 pattern that formed. We had a failed stage 4 breakdown attempt in here, which formed as a spring and has come back into the range again. So this could potentially be reversing back into stage 1 type behavior. As I said, we've still got this significant resistance range in this to deal with. So this is much weaker. You see volume at the moment still lighter as it pulls back up. So if we look at some of the individual stocks, there is actually a lot of earnings going on in the week ahead or so. At the moment, let's just go through some of the individual stocks before we talk about some of the earnings in these. So let me just click through a couple of these. These are sorted by their strongest relative strength. So these are from different groups. You can see exploration, production, oil equipment services, integrated oil and gas. You see there is the odd coal one in there, but the pipelines, etc., are much further down. So let's have a look at a couple of these and see what's going on here. So Dino, this one, making a stage 2 continuation attempt to new highs here today. You can see volume was slightly above average there, but obviously not a hugely convincing breakout, only 2.91%. I think obviously the oil equipment and services group did 5% on its own, so not a huge continuation breakout attempt there by any means. You can see if you look at the weekly chart of that, we've got a little bit of obviously a sharp cup and handle thing there, punch bowl of death type look to it. So you've got to be a little bit careful on that one. This is the strongest relative strength stock at the moment. So, but obviously it's not the greatest pattern as yet. Volume is not strong on the breakout attempt on the week so far. You can see it's only about half what we've seen over the prior month or so. Look at TPL, it's another one, second strongest at the moment. So again, made a stage 2 continuation breakout attempt recently. This one's been showing some good relative strength. Volume remains very weak on the move high here. This is a very light volume stock low, so we won't dwell too much on that one, but is continuing higher in stage 2. KLXE, this one's got a little bit better volume here, so get a log chart on this, see a little bit better. So it's had a huge move since July, so this one is already up 230 odd percent and approaching prior highs. So currently in stage 2 at the moment, quite a volatile name there. Obviously approaching potential area of resistance. PBR, so Petrobras, Petróleo Brasilia starting to move out again, attempting to make a continuation breakout. So watch for a fallback below in there. If it starts to come back under again, then obviously that would be a little short-term up thrust there. So volume not brilliant on the move higher today, but is moving up towards the top of the range. So again, stage 2, this one we considered late stage 2 at the moment. PBF Energy also testing the top of the range, a little double top there today. Obviously relative strength is outperforming with stock low. So again, we look at the weekly chart on this. This one would be considered in stage 3, testing the top of the range. Wine Energy here. So let's put a log chart on, get a little bit better view. So attempting to break out again today. Volume wasn't exactly exceptional there. So again, not the greatest looking chart, potentially in stage 2 at the moment. CVI and testing a pivot level there, so it didn't manage to break out convincingly. Had a 6% move on the day low. It's fairly strong, and currently would consider it stage 3 as well. So testing the near-term pivot. So again, we've got to keep an eye out for a potential up thrust in that one, but it's obviously had a good move already get back towards the top of the range there, but it is a sharp move. COP also attempting to make a stage 2 continuation breakout attempt, but hasn't made any progress as yet. Okay, on a weekly chart, again, this would be considered stage 3 at the moment, testing the top of the range, so on watch for a continuation attempt. TNK, again, stage 2 continuation. So this one has been a strong stage 2 move, one of the best, obviously, stage 2 runs we've seen in some of the oil stocks recently. So obviously showing relative strength in the near term versus the market since that July low there. So then Tusk. All right, let's go. Let's get rid of some of these now. Let's come back. Let's talk through some of the earnings quickly before I move on. Don't want to run on too long on this. So you can see at the moment, if I scroll down to here, so we had a few earnings today: LBRT, Kinder Morgan, Baker Hughes. So these had some reasonable moves, gap up moves. They both beat quite convincingly on earnings. Obviously, a lot of the oil stocks have been. So just coming into obviously the start of a new season for the oil stocks now, though. So lots reporting over the coming weeks. So get rid of that. Again, similar kind of move. We've got a test at the top of the range. So LBRT had a decent move today, but it massively beat on its earnings and revenues. So a 5.58% move wasn't great considering how big, obviously, it beat in terms of its earnings results. So, but showing some decent relative strength in the near term compared to what the price action's doing. But you can see, obviously, over the next week or so, we've got obviously numerous earnings coming up. Lots of strong relative strength stocks in the oil and gas, in the exploration production, oil sort of groups themselves. We've obviously got dozens and dozens of stocks reporting in the next week or so. Obviously, we go all the way through to the third there. So that's probably might even be 100 plus stocks in there reporting over the next few weeks or so. So obviously lots going on with the oil group at the moment. But if I go back to the start again, obviously I can highlight the fact that oil itself is still in stage 4 here. So just wanted to put a sort of a warning of a potential bull trap in the group. I know lots of people were obviously excited about it today on Twitter. There was lots of people posting about it, obviously the breakout attempts. But until oil actually confirms the move, then obviously it's a little bit suspect. There's a chance of a bull trap going on there. And obviously, just as I said, be on watch for signs of up thrust after distribution behavior. Obviously, if you're attempting the breakouts, then it's obviously just obviously be aware of that increased risk, because obviously there is this headwind from what's going on in crude oil itself. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to the next segment now of the video. So